I call to order the fourth interactive dialogue of the General Assembly on harmony with nature. I would like to warmly welcome all of you to this meeting. This interactive dialogue is convened on the occasion of International Mother Earth Day in accordance with Resolution 68/216 of 20th December 2013, and aims to advance discussions on the promotion of a balanced integration of the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development through harmony with nature. The same resolution also encouraged giving appropriate consideration to the issue of harmony with nature in the elaboration of the post-2015 development agenda. Permit me to make a statement. Excellencies, the permanent representative of the plurinational state of Bolivia, Ambassador Llorenti, Ms. Fishner.
Yes.
Good morning, Madam.
Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, after the hardships of a particularly long and cold winter, it is my distinct pleasure to greet you in the dawn of a new season at this General Assembly debate on harmony with nature. We gather here today on this International Mother Earth Day to honor the planet that sustains and revitalizes us, to explore how to integrate the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development, and to ensure that the profound and intricate connection between humankind and our home is duly reflected in the post-2015 development agenda. The history of civilization is a story of the sometimes complex relationship of human beings with nature and the planet. From the time man sought dominance and control over the environment, the quality of our lives as human beings has changed radically. With that change, while that change was largely positive, modern patterns of consumption and production have caused such over-exploitation of natural resources that there is a disequilibrium in the delicate balance of Earth's ecosystems. The evidence is that the current global population is using vast quantities of natural resources at so rapid a rate that we are consuming 50% more resources than the planet can provide. Consequently, today's lifestyles have ushered in what scientists are now calling the Anthropocene era. Essentially, this means that man's lifestyles, actions, technologies, and practices can and are irrevocably and adversely impacting nature, putting the survival of many species on the threat, undermining the survival prospects for current and future generations, and jeopardizing the very planet from which we take our life. We cannot and must not ignore the cries of our planet to restore a more harmonious relationship with nature. Nor must we lose the opportunity to work harmoniously with each other for the common good. Excellencies, nature is more than an economic resource. We cannot indefinitely extract infinite growth from a finite planet. A sustainable approach to development, one that is in harmony with the rhythms of nature, means that the needs and rights of the current generation do not encroach upon those of future generations. It also means that we must consciously and deliberately choose to evolve our purely human-centered worldview towards a more balanced, earth-centered relationship with the planet. Under this new paradigm, nature is recognized as an equal partner with humankind as well as a crucial ally. In other words, being in harmony with nature means both pro-planet and pro-people, and ordering the development of our societies towards sustaining nature, and by so doing, we sustain ourselves. Such a philosophy can contribute to the elaboration of the post-2015 development agenda, which seeks to eliminate extreme global poverty and forge a single development pathway that is truly sustainable. Many of the issues currently under consideration in the emergent framework reflect the need to restore a more harmonious relation between Earth and its inhabitants. In other words, the time has come for us to truly talk the talk and walk the walk. And whether we talk about agriculture, efficient use of natural resources, the protection of our forests and oceans, or the development of sustainable modes of production and consumption, we need to seek ways to reconcile the needs of people with the needs and capacities of our planet. We as a human family must now learn to respect the planetary boundaries and work towards forging a new and healthier relationship that will allow both to thrive. Distinguished delegates, as called for by Resolution 68216, today's dialogue occurs at a critical juncture in the planning for a new development agenda and will examine how the issue of harmony with nature can inform and enrich this ongoing process. The panel of this dialogue is a fitting complement to the work undertaken by the Rio mandated processes to begin defining an agenda, which my team and I are doing our utmost to set the stage. I hope that the issues discussed here today relating to science, ecology, agriculture, law, policy, and planning will offer significant added value. Excellencies, sound policies and decision-making must be based on sound science. In formulating the post-2015 development agenda, it is important that member states and stakeholders rely on the most current scientific information. Our panelists today will share their academic expertise with us, highlighting the intrinsic links between economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. The dialogue will also provide guidance for the further building of a knowledge network, the efforts of which will serve to produce this balanced paradigm for the planet and for people. The foundation of this knowledge network is the recently updated Harmony with Nature website, which also features the latest legal developments on the rights of nature, law, and policy. An extensive and in-depth bibliography of academic expertise focusing on Earth-centered relationship with nature instead of prevailing human-centered approach can also be found on the website. In addition to those previously mentioned, today's fourth dialogue on harmony with nature will allow participants to take stock of the 4 reports of the Secretary General, as well as the 3 previously held dialogues. Begin the examination of appropriate strategies to operationalize and implement harmony with nature approaches. Examine the policies, legal and institutional frameworks that must be put in place at the local, regional, and international levels for successful operationalization of harmony with nature approaches. Ladies and gentlemen, as a global population, we usually think of ourselves as being interconnected by the ability to reach every part of the globe through means of modern travel, or by our ability through technology to know what is happening a continent away, as well as we know what is taking place in our own backyards. We laud the way in which the internet and social media allow us to communicate in real time, no matter where we are. We marvel at the rapidity and depth of the contagion of the recent financial crisis, which showed us the extent of our interconnections in a globalized economy. But we really pause to recognize that it is through nature that we are most connected with powerful and interwoven binds, through the air we breathe, the water that sustains life on this earth, and the ozone layer which protects our biosphere. The sustainability of current and future generations depends on our living in harmony with each other and with nature. I look forward to hearing your views and encourage all delegations to take active part in this interactive give and take of ideas. May all your work have benefit for the people and our planet. I thank you. I now give the floor to the permanent representative of the plurinational state of Bolivia to the United Nations. Session.
Señor Presidente, distinguidas delegados, distinguidos delegados, en primera instancia permítame agradecer esta nueva oportunidad que el Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia tiene, no solo para conmemorar junto a la comunidad internacional este 22 de abril como Día Internacional de la Madre Tierra, sino también para debatir diferentes enfoques alternativos del desarrollo sostenible, dando un paso más y discutiendo desde una perspectiva integral y no únicamente desde una perspectiva antropocéntrica. Es por esta razón que consideramos que el abordaje de este cuarto diálogo interactivo es encontrar el equilibrio entre las dimensiones económica, social y ambiental del desarrollo sostenible, equilibrio que llamaremos armonía con la naturaleza. Es inevitable no rememorar la resolución número 63/278 aprobada por la Asamblea General el año 2009, la cual reconoce a la Madre Tierra y sus ecosistemas como nuestro hogar, invitando en este entendido a crear conciencia global. Señor Presidente, hace un año atrás nos encontrábamos en este mismo lugar debatiendo las necesidades económicas en cuanto a este paradigma. Hoy queremos resaltar la necesidad de aterrizar nuestros conceptos en las tres esferas componentes de todo sistema y la necesidad concreta de involucrar a las instituciones en el desafío en búsqueda de un vivir bien, aproximándonos a un mejor equilibrio del desarrollo sostenible para generaciones venideras. En este marco, el Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia, siguiendo la convicción de sus principios, la Declaración de Río sobre el Medio Ambiente y Desarrollo, el Programa 21 y el Plan para su ulterior ejecución, la Declaración de Johannesburgo sobre el Desarrollo Sostenible y el Plan de Acción de las Decisiones de la Cumbre Mundial sobre el Desarrollo Sostenible, avanzó en el reconocimiento de los derechos de la Madre Tierra y promulgó la Ley Marco de la Madre Tierra y Desarrollo Integral para Vivir Bien, misma que plantea establecer la visión y los fundamentos del desarrollo integral en armonía y equilibrio con la Madre Tierra. Esta normativa también recoge como objeto el de garantizar la continuidad de la capacidad de regeneración de los componentes y sistemas de vida de la Madre Tierra, recuperando y fortaleciendo los saberes locales y conocimientos ancestrales en el marco de la complementariedad de derechos, obligaciones y deberes, así como el desarrollo integral como medio para lograr el vivir bien, las bases para la planificación, gestión pública e inversiones y el marco institucional estratégico para su implementación. Dentro de los fines es importante resaltar la necesidad de trabajar tanto los lineamientos y principios que orienten el acceso a los componentes, zonas y sistemas de vida de nuestra Madre Tierra, así como los objetos del desarrollo integral que orienten la creación de las condiciones para transitar hacia un vivir bien de nuestros pueblos en armonía y equilibrio con la Madre Tierra a partir de la construcción de una sociedad justa, equitativa, solidaria y equilibrada. El Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia desea recalcar que el sentido operativo de esta decisión tomada el año 2009 por la comunidad internacional pasa necesariamente por orientar las leyes específicas, políticas, normas, estrategias, planes, programas y proyectos a través del desarrollo integral en armonía y equilibrio con la Madre Tierra. Señor Presidente, hacemos hincapié hoy sobre la necesidad, sobre la llamada economía verde. El Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia reitera su rechazo a este tipo y cualquier otro tipo de modelo que tenga como fin poner precio a las funciones ambientales de nuestra Madre Tierra, creando mercados en donde la naturaleza se comercializa. Ejemplo de esto son los mercados de carbono, que no frenaron la contaminación, todo lo contrario. Ahora las industrias de los países desarrollados prefieren comprar bonos de carbono en vez de disminuir sus emisiones. Bolivia ha dejado en claro su posición en la cláusula de reserva en el documento El futuro que queremos de Río+20. En este contexto, sentimos la necesidad de aclarar que ninguno de nuestros modelos de vida y aportes a nivel internacional en cuanto al vivir bien y armonía con la naturaleza deben ser tergiversados ni relacionados con conceptos antropocéntricos y depredadores. En este contexto, y siguiendo el mandato de la Resolución 68/216 de la Asamblea General, y con objetivo de avanzar en las deliberaciones sobre armonía con la naturaleza y a fin de promover una integración equilibrada de las dimensiones económica, social y ambiental del desarrollo sostenible, pueda contribuir en la elaboración de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible y la Agenda para el Desarrollo post-2015, Bolivia reitera las siguientes propuestas. 1. Agricultura y seguridad alimentaria con soberanía alimentaria, es decir, cero hambre en el mundo y ejercicio pleno del derecho humano a la alimentación, fortaleciendo la producción de alimentos sanos y saludables. 2. Patrones de consumo sustentable, reducir sustancialmente las pérdidas y el desperdicio de alimentos en la cadena de consumo, principalmente en los países desarrollados, y optimizar el uso de materias primas en la producción de bienes, promover estilos de vida basados en el consumo sustentable de bienes en el marco del vivir bien, mecanismos e instrumentos técnicos y legales que permitan el uso y aprovechamiento de recursos naturales en el marco de la restauración y regeneración de la naturaleza. Tercero, patrones de producción no contaminantes, respetando la capacidad de regeneración de la Madre Tierra, producción saludable en el medio ambiente, la naturaleza y los pueblos, respetando los límites de regeneración de la naturaleza, contribuyendo a fortalecer y contribuir ecosistemas sustentables y garantizar la vida de la Madre Tierra. Cuarto, funciones ambientales de la naturaleza fortalecidas para lograr el desarrollo integral y sostenible, el fortalecimiento de las funciones y sistemas de vida de la Madre Tierra en el marco del aprovechamiento y manejo integral y sustentable de sus componentes. Quinto, adaptación al cambio climático en el marco del desarrollo integral y la erradicación de la pobreza, que permita promover acciones para prevenir, disminuir las condiciones de riesgo y vulnerabilidad ante los desastres naturales e impactos del cambio climático, desarrollando capacidades de adaptación. La democratización de la tierra y accesos a medios y factores de emprendimientos económicos, erradicación de la pobreza, la exclusión y las brechas de ingreso, distribuyendo la riqueza y facilitando el acceso a los medios y factores de producción y de vida. El empleo digno para vivir bien en el marco del desarrollo integral, eliminación del desempleo y promoción de fuentes de trabajo dignos que permitan condiciones de vivir bien. Acceso universal a la educación, la salud, pleno acceso a sistemas de seguros de salud y a servicios de educación primaria, secundaria y universitaria. El acceso al agua, saneamiento, energía y comunicación y gestión integral del agua y las cuencas como un derecho humano. Cumplimiento del derecho humano al agua y al saneamiento, poblaciones que cuentan con cobertura universal de servicios de agua potable, saneamiento, energía y comunicación. Construcción de un sistema financiero mundial orientado al desarrollo y la erradicación de la pobreza. Dicho sistema financiero que sea diversificado, democratizado y pluralizado, orientándose al desarrollo, la erradicación de la pobreza y la armonía con la naturaleza, promoviendo una regulación para evitar y prevenir la crisis. Señor Presidente, escuchando su intervención, permítame decir que Hemos llegado a un punto en la historia de nuestra especie en que no es solamente la ideología, no es solamente las opiniones de algunos, sino es la ciencia la que nos dice que el capitalismo está acabando con la Madre Tierra, que es el capitalismo el que afecta fundamentalmente los derechos humanos, los derechos más bien de la Madre Tierra y por ende los derechos humanos de todas y de todos. Señor Presidente, por último, permítame expresar nuestra preocupación, pero al mismo tiempo nuestra esperanza de que el trabajo que tenemos por delante con la Agenda de Desarrollo Post-2015 sea fructífero, positivo, de acuerdo a las nuevas realidades y desafíos de nuestros pueblos y gobiernos. Para ello, consideramos que el resultado de ese diálogo interactivo de armonía con la naturaleza es uno de los insumos más relevantes a tomarse en cuenta. Muchas gracias.
I thank the permanent representative of the plurinational state of Bolivia for his statement. I now give the floor to the president and founder of the American Indian Law Alliance, Ms. Tonya Frischner, who is our representative of civil society. Madam?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to acknowledge you, Your Excellency John William Ash, and the Excellency Sasha Llorenti Soles, Permanent Representative of the Plurinational State of Bolivia to the United Nations. Your Excellencies, distinguished presenters, friends and relatives, in particular the International Indian Treaty Council. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Haudenosaunee Six Nations Iroquois Confederacy, North America, of which I am a citizen, and a message. Mother Earth is a relative, not a resource. I agree with you, Mr. President, when you said in your message, nature is more than an economic resource. As stated earlier, in 2009, the General Assembly proclaimed April 22nd as International Mother Earth Day. In so doing, member states acknowledge that the Earth and its ecosystems are our common home and express their conviction that it is necessary to promote harmony with nature in order to achieve a just balance among the economic, social, environmental needs of the present and future generations. The same year, the General Assembly adopted its first resolution on harmony with nature. The resolution expressed, and I quote, its concern over the documented environmental degradation and the negative impact on nature resulting from human activity. The fourth interactive dialogue is timed as the international community prepares to define a post-2015 development agenda. For Indigenous peoples, this agenda must focus on sustaining the natural world rather than reducing it to a resource to feed the global economic system. The post-2015 agenda must include the full, effective, and equal participation of Indigenous peoples in line with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Recognizing the fourth interactive dialogue to advance discussions on economic approaches in the context of sustainable development and to further a more ethical basis for the relationship between humanity and the natural world is a positive step. Harmony with nature for Indigenous peoples has been our worldview and the basis of our existence. We have always served as stewards of Mother Earth, and we share with humanity these beliefs, which serve as the basis of our lifeways. We submit that humanity and the natural world are best served by the full and equal participation of Indigenous peoples, women, and persons with disabilities, and recognizing their inherent right to self-determination and the principle of free, prior, and informed consent in the UN Development Agenda post-2015. The the UN system must ensure equity based on gender, youth, and persons with disabilities in the representation and organizing of all matters concerning them, including indigenous peoples at the local, national, regional, and international level. The Harmony with Nature discussion requires full and effective participation of indigenous peoples in all UN fora, as required under the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. This includes our inherent and inalienable right of self-determination, which is preeminent and a requirement for the realization of our rights. Mr. President, we recommend that states move towards full implementation of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and other international human rights instruments. As acknowledged in the future we want, the outcome document for Rio +20, Mother Nature embodies a universal set of principles. This fact has always been recognized by indigenous peoples. The natural law cannot be changed to suit humanity. The original instructions are clear. When water, air, and lands are all contaminated, humanity as we know it will be gone. Global industry and states must show good faith in restoring the lands and waters of indigenous peoples for all our children and for the 7th generation yet to arrive. Mr. President, again, Mother Earth is a relative, not a resource. For indigenous peoples, the cultural and spiritual dimension and relationship to the land is equally important. Our spirituality is distinct from Western concepts of religion, and our spirituality is our way of life. Our distinct and profound relationship with the natural world and our lands, territories, sky, and resources are of utmost value to us. Our relationships and responsibilities to our Mother Earth as indigenous peoples and members of the human family cannot be understood apart from the fundamental relationship indigenous peoples have with the land. This relationship with Mother Earth is inscribed in our own laws, traditions, and customs, as well as Article 26 of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Mr. President, we take seriously our responsibility to restore the health and integrity of the planet's ecosystems. Indigenous peoples collectively and individually recognize the sacredness of Mother Earth, the cosmos, all living things and elements that have sustained us. We call on the UN and member states to be mindful of the impact of space intervention and its impact on indigenous peoples' spiritual relationship with the universe. The report of the Secretary General on Harmony with Nature, paragraph 60, points to the sound scientific facts regarding the need to consider long-term impacts of human activities on Mother Earth. The economic approach to achieve harmony with nature must contain an ethical foundation, or the harm to humanity and the natural world will continue at its compounded pace. We must always consider the impact of our actions and decisions on the 7th generation yet to arrive. Recognizing that current economic models have failed to address some of the most pressing global issues, including global poverty, and recognizing that the current economic models have not leveled the playing field for indigenous peoples and other communities at risk. It is clear current economic models are not sustainable and should not be continually repeated and relied upon by all sectors of society. We note that environmental economists attempt to assign market values to the natural world in direct contrast to the worldviews of indigenous peoples. Mr. President, in our respective communities, indigenous peoples are unilaterally pursuing the removal of immense toxic waste from our lands, territories, and waters that have been left by the extractive industry. Indigenous peoples are determined to prevent the further contamination of our territories and waters. We draw upon the follow-up report on Indigenous peoples and the right to participate in decision-making with a focus on extractive industries. In many cases, industry and government regulators have refused to take responsibility for their contamination of Indigenous lands, territories, and waters, and must be held accountable for their actions. We further recommend that international industries, corporations, and business enterprises operating or seeking to operate in Indigenous territories endorse the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and operate in accordance with its principles. Mr. President, in closing, the responsibility and accountability of all global leaders in their daily deliberations and decision-making must include the effect on the seventh generation coming for all humanity. This is a major key to achieving harmony in nature and sustainability. Once again, Mother Earth is a relative, not a resource. Mr. President, thank you very much.
I thank Ms. Fisher for her statement. We have heard the last speaker in the opening segment. As members have been informed, this interactive dialogue also consists of a panel discussion and a closing segment to be held in this room. Participants are encouraged to use the opportunity during the panel discussion to pose questions and respond in an interactive manner to the comments and presentations made by panelists and other experts. The panel discussions, which will be moderated by Ms. Linda Sheehan, Executive Director of the Earth Law Center, will take place immediately following this opening segment. The closing segment will take place immediately thereafter. I would now like to invite the moderator and the panelists of the panel discussion to take their seats at this podium. The opening segment is now concluded.